everybody. Welcome to season 2 of the Identity Project. My name's Kimberly Coljatt. I am your host. And today we're starting off season 2 with Aileen Cho. Aileen, thanks for being here.
Yay, happy to be here.
Yay. Aileen is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She is a registered drama therapist, a board certified trainer, should I go through your whole resume?
Please don't.
She does a lot of things. She's the incoming chair for the drama therapy program at the California Institute for Integral Studies. We'll include a link to your website when we publish, in case people want to learn more about you. But Aileen, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the intro.
Word. Today we're going to talk about drama therapy and self-revs.
Self-revs.
Yeah.
Self-revs for short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we start with, since I know some people who listen to the podcast are drama therapists and some are not, why don't we introduce folks to what is drama therapy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's just get us situated here.
Word.
So drama therapy, the short definition will be the intentional use of theater and dramatic techniques to serve in the purpose of some healing or change or transformation.
Right on.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell. That's it. Great. And so, I mean, we've known each other for a minute, like
a really long time.
Yeah. Wait,
let's do the math.
16 years? It's 2026 now.
Yeah, 16 years.
Oh, I'm having an existential crisis moment.
Right? The math is mathing. 16
Yeah.
years. Yeah. Yeah.
We both went to the same school. This coincidentally the school where you're working now.
Yes. I never left. I've never really graduated. Yeah, and you were one cohort above me.
Yeah.
They were like siblings.
Siblings moving through all of the things. So in the program, we learn lots of different, like all the ways drama therapy is applied. There's performance, there's process, there's applied theater arts. Where's your favorite corner right now today of the drama therapy?
Oh my gosh. I mean, now that I have been teaching at CIIS, but now as I'm becoming head of it all, I feel like I cannot be biased. And
that's fair. That's a good point.
Love all children equally.
That's fair. You've done lots of different practices too.
I have, yeah. I was a part of a playback troupe. Kimmy and I are both DBT practitioners, and for all of you who have been listening, I'm sure you've heard her speak about developmental transformations, and that's actually where we got to become closer. And yeah. Self-revs that we're going to talk about. I mean, but we really train in all, right? We learn about role theory. We do psychodrama, which is a cousin of drama therapy. Yeah. I mean, I do love it all. Yeah. I do love it all.
Because each one of them has their own, like whatever approach it is, it has its benefits for different people, different contexts. I feel like, and also like the different work sites that people work at, whether they're in like schools or whether they're working with like there's so many different places. Well, why don't you share with everybody like different sites? Because you probably know more sites where drama therapists work than I do.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, definitely clinical settings, right? Like hospitals, treatment programs, a lot of school-based drama therapy, clinics and centers, private practices, and all the spaces, yes, with incarcerated folks.
Yeah.
A lot of in-between spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Theaters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, today we're gonna put a lot of our energy towards self-revelatory performance.
That's right.
Aileen's done a lot of self-revs. We call them self-revs for short, but it's technically called a self-revelatory performance. Do you want to share with folks the history of the self-rev?
Yeah. I'm like thinking that you and I are kind of self-rev junkies.
I am a little bit.
Yeah, we gotta watch ourselves today, because this could become like a 5-hour podcast. We could go on and on and on and on. We really just nerd out about the form.
Yeah.
So the term and the medium um, has been coined by Dr. Renee Imuna, who is a pioneer of our field and the founder and current chair of the drama therapy program. And it actually stemmed from her other drama therapy model, the integrative 5-phase model, where there's a flow and there's different phases that scaffold into the next. And one moment you're mirroring, and then the next you're doing a full blown performance on something you're grappling with and have some moment of change or transformation. And so I don't believe it started as full blown self-revs, as we're going to talk about today. And Kimmy and I will sort of share what we have witnessed in terms of kind of the history and our experience of being a performer and then directing. And I'm teaching the form and how it's evolved. But it didn't become like a thing until when she started the program, the graduate program in drama therapy. At the time, Kimmy, right when you and I went, there were 2 accredited schools in the US.
Yeah.
It was NYU and CIIS.
Yep.
And one of the options to graduate, so your final thesis, graduating thesis capstone project, was to complete a 45-minute to, I think they used to be an hour.
Yeah.
Self-rev.
Some were longer.
Yeah.
Truth. Yeah.
There's different time periods or eras of self-revs, right? In terms of like expectations and standards, and whatnot. So yeah, and it's kind of roofed under the house of therapeutic theater. And because they have been solo pieces, they kind of are side by side next to autobiographical theater with some distinct differences.
Yeah. So in autobiographical theater, I think a lot of people assume that's just like, somebody getting up on stage telling the audience the story of their life, like in scenes. Maybe they play different characters of people in their life and then show's done.
Right.
In a self-rev, what's self-rev versus autobiographical?
So there are autobiographical elements, because the main thing that anyone needs to know about a self-rev is you are performing as a drama therapy client, which is you, like for real. This is not a fictional story. This is you and your life and your personal material. And you're also demonstrating you as a drama therapist doing drama therapy on stage, live in front of an audience, right? So the issue that you're grappling with has to be pretty present. It can't just be, oh, I went through that and now I'm going to show it, and then therefore that is cathartic. That could be, right? True. We are, I think, overall in the umbrella of therapeutic theater, one could say that just by expressing and revealing one's struggles can be therapeutic or cathartic. But self-rev says, no, we're not going to end it there. We actually want to see some kind of an intervention or transformation happen in front of a live audience. So it's quite juicy.
Yeah.
And hard.
And hecka hard. It's so visceral. And I think like the one and anytime I've talked about self-revs, whether it's on social media or on the podcast or with clients even, the one thing that I end up kind of like lingering back on is the concept of aesthetic distance, because I think about that component of performance with self-revs, of course, because they're viscerally wrestling with something that's live, active for them, that they're trying to transform in real time in their life as part of the piece. But also just like now I look for, like when I'm watching pieces of theater or when I'm listening to music or any expression of art, I'm thinking about like under distance, meaning like the actor or the performer is flooded with emotion, or over distance, meaning there's just not a lot of connectivity to the felt sense of what they're expressing. And so like finding that sweet spot of flow in the middle, I'm like, I am fascinated by this whole, if I could focus like years worth of research in
In
this
a lab.
in a lab, it
Of
would
that
be
in
on
between
aesthetic
scenes.
distance and flow because I'm just so I look for it in concerts, I look for it in theater, I look for I just everywhere. But in self-revs, it is a key component, I think,
Mm-hmm.
to uh how transformation happens on stage.
Mm-hmm.
So when we
Mm-hmm.
say transformation, what's an example of what that might look like in somebody's rev for somebody who's never seen a self-rev before?
I mean, I think it depends.
Hmm.
First of all, I want to back up a little bit and
Sure.
say, I think it makes sense to people, even if you haven't seen one or have been in one,
Hmm.
because I personally think that healing, the act of healing in and of itself is a creative act.
Yes.
So it's like, duh, that makes sense to make theater out of something that you want to heal.
Yep.
And when we say transformation, I think we can use that kind of interchangeably with healing something or changing something, because sometimes people aren't necessarily dealing with a gaping, bleeding wound.
Right.
I know a lot of the pieces I think recently have been more trauma centered, but I mean, I've seen all sorts of different themes and issues
Mhm.
being grappled with. So,
Yeah.
with that, the transformation can be big, a big act that is cathartic or dramatic. But we also do warn the revers that that's not like the healing doesn't stop or end there, right? There
Mm-mm.
is a reverberation that happens. Healing is also not an event. It's not like
Mm-mm.
boom, this the show
Done.
and done, and I'm healed. So I think so when we say transformation, some moment of a shift, even the
Yeah.
slightest, right, or a
Yeah.
rehearsal for an alternative narrative,
Yeah.
a new perspective, insight,
Yeah.
outsight,
Yeah. Because I think
connection,
for
something new.
something new, because I think for so many people, whatever it is, they're so accustomed to the narrative that they tell themselves about what is that just having what else could it be as
Mhm.
such a DBT question. What else could it
What
be? But
else?
like, and what else? And what else? But like, and also a very could be very anxious ridden question. But like, just that slight shift to, oh, it could be, it also could be this, and pondering whatever that is
Mhm.
enough of a shift
Mhm.
in a self-revelatory performance. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think why, I mean, we could also probably do this with so many different artistic modalities,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I think what's neat about being in the theater is it feels very kind of sacred almost, right? This
Yeah.
act of ritual. And so
Mm-hmm.
it marks a moment, it's a milestone or a rite of passage. And again, that's not when all the change happens.
Right.
But for humans, for the history of mankind, womankind,
Mm-hmm.
um, theater or theatrical rituals have, I think, always had a place in how we've collectively made meaning, right?
Yeah.
And process. I mean, this is like before therapy existed, right?
Yeah.
And then you have churches and temples, right? Like it's very theatrical.
It echoes like it's all to me uh, it's all the same like I mean
Different
you
renditions or
different
genres, I
renditions,
guess. But
yes, they echo each other for sure. There's something
yeah,
in that that's like I don't know,
spiritual.
it's spiritual, it's holding a
Yeah.
space for a moment that is being like marked.
Mhm.
um yeah, so like a lot of the students choose to do a self-revelatory performance as part of their like end of their cumulative, what, I forgot what the title is,
Oh, the capstone
the capstone.
project to,
Yeah.
yeah, to really kind of wrap things up, but to show and demonstrate their mastery as they're graduating with their masters in drama therapy of what they've learned,
Yeah.
and apply it to themselves.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe for the listeners, we also want to delineate that the self-revs that Kimmy and I are going to be mostly kind of talking about as references or examples are done in the school,
Yeah.
which is very different, I think, when done with pedestrians or civilians,
Hmm.
um, because the expectations are higher,
Yeah.
right? This is like their thesis project, so there has to be, I don't know, psychological depth and nuance, and also showing what they've learned and what they're integrating.
Yep.
And they're budding clinicians, so we're looking for self-awareness and insight, right?
Yeah.
Versus if we were to do this with clients, a lot of
It's
those
different.
yeah, expectations wouldn't be there.
And there'd still be like the theatricality, the aesthetic
Mm-hmm.
representation of with anyone you'd work with. But at school, because so many of the students options, I'll let folks know students have options for their capstone. They can, do a project, they can write a paper, or they can do a self-rev. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of students tend to choose self-rev because there's just so many pieces to it, and a lot of it, especially throughout the graduate school experience as a drama therapy student, so much of it is around like you're learning experientially what drama therapy is by doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You're also learning about yourself as you're engaging, and like I things people don't know listening to this podcast. When I was running a mental health program, I had to work with lots and lots of different interns from different programs. And I always found that people who had been through this program, of course, recognizing bias, right? Like I went through this
We're
program,
not biased at all.
no bias. Oh, what are you talking about? Self-awareness. But like you really do have to kind of put yourself through the ringer while you're doing this.
Mhm.
I mean, mindfully, but like to really know yourself, because the idea behind that is if the more you know yourself, the less it gets in the way of your work with your clients, with,
Mhm.
and also just as a clinician, knowing where your strengths
Mhm.
are, where your challenges are. And so much of that is tied to our own personal histories and
Mhm.
experiences and culture and all these things.
It's a
Um,
very intense journey.
yeah.
We demand a lot, not just academically, it's very rigorous, but also emotionally, interpersonally. I mean, we didn't even get into the group dynamics of being in a cohort, going through a process that's very evocative.
Yeah.
And then you're in your personal psychotherapy. I mean, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's like a self boot camp,
It is. It
right?
kind of is, though. And so then it ends with this, like many students choose the self-rev. So they've already been doing this work
Right.
in classes and with their own personal therapist. And then it culminates by working with a director in this process and then with this teacher.
Right. So it is a 4 unit course. So you're in a class with the same people who are going to be performing the same weekend, night or weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're in your intensive rehearsals with your director. And you're right. So the actual rehearsal process is give or take 5 to 6 months from when it starts with your director, who, by the way, is also a trained graduate drama therapist who has most likely done their own self-rev. So they're
Mm-hmm.
um, a doula or a midwife of
Yeah.
some sort. And
Yeah.
to the day of the performance is about, yeah, 5 or 6 months. But like Kimmy said, you learn about the form and you do a little mini 10-minute um, mini rev, we call it. So you kind of have a seed planted early on, and people can be thinking about it for a year or two, or maybe even three,
Oh, for sure.
or dreaming about it at least. And I don't know if about your cohort, but our cohort, anytime something happened, because there's just so much that happens and not enough time to process,
Yes.
we would just look at each other and be like, put it in your rev, just save it for the rev
Save it for the rev.
when you get to deep dive, right? And
Yeah.
everything is just grist for the mill. So it was kind of funny. Yeah, just like save it for the grand finale
Grand
performance.
finale. Yeah. So real. So very real. So the thing that's different in these, I mean, so it gets by the time you arrive at that point in the program, there's so much that's already started to like rumble. And so you go
Mm-hmm.
through this process of rehearsal with a director. And how, I mean, I can talk a little bit like both of you've directed a lot of revs.
I have.
Um,
I want to say directed and consulted maybe over a dozen, well over a dozen,
that's a
something like
lot.
that. It's a lot.
Yeah. So, and honestly, like, so many years ago that there was a course in, directing revs. I remember taking
Mhm.
that and I remember leaving that and going like, cool, I can't wait to direct a rev. And, but I also was like, how am I going how would I do that? I don't know. Now it's a very different experience. It used to be that the director and the actor would go off in their own rehearsal space and do it, which is honestly, as a drama therapist who practices in a city where I think I'm the only drama therapist around, um, that would be how I would approach it here. It would just be like, go
Hmm.
off, work with your person, and be on my way, and probably call you and consult and say like, Aileen, help. Um, but now in the school environment, there's lots of supports, there's lots of scaffolding, there's lots of uh, the student.
Guidance and hand holding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what's neat about this podcast or this conversation I was excited about is the as Kimmy said in the very start, I've had many hats and have had different drama therapy roles, but my all-time favorite and where I get to use every drama therapy skill I have ever learned is in the role of the self-rev director. But the ironic thing is that there's never really been given much attention to this role. It hasn't really been written about, standardized, studied. And so that's just starting to happen now. And I think that's why it feels different to step in now, because I mean, as a teacher, I think how I teach is informed by how I learn. And
Mm-hmm.
so that kind of applies to everything I do. How I have directed was informed by, or how I direct is how I am informed. Oh my goodness. How I direct is informed by how I was directed. It's like an
Yes.
English grammar test. Um,
It's
and
a hard one.
so how I'm trying to grow directors is also informed by how I directed. Um, yeah, and it's a really fascinating role because it's not quite all clinical, although we are learning more and more that that really is vital,
Yeah.
right? The clinical skills. And so we do uh, try to encourage the directors to be seasoned clinician.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then you have to have the theatrical background because it really encompasses both. You really are a director.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's such I don't know, like a marriage
Yeah.
of the two.
There's like I found there's a space in the rehearsal process of a rev for literally not only every part of the drama therapy self that I am, like the drama therapist that I am, like holding it clinically, holding it like all of that part, especially at the beginning, right? So the beginning of the process, just like any creative process, is play and
Mm-hmm.
exploration of like what is this? What are we doing? What are the themes? But as it continued, I found that like, okay, at times I'm therapist, like clinical therapist. At times I am a theater, like I'm really pulling my theater director or theater history
Mm-hmm.
directing, like knowing what the principles of aesthetics and blocking and
Lights and sounds
me
and
yeah, and the tech theater piece and the stage manager piece that's like, okay, we've got to have this and this by this
mm-hmm.
point, like all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And like I had in the whole process of directing had to pull on pretty much every chapter of myself as a theater professional and
Mm-hmm.
every chapter of myself as a drama therapist and
Yeah.
also some of my own like just the parallel process of like
Yeah.
my rever going through it and then me also going through it alongside
Mm-hmm.
them and it bringing up stuff for me like I think
Mm-hmm.
as far as like why it's important to have somebody seasoned in that director role because if I didn't have that awareness that could really muck up that rehearsal process. um
Yeah, and I think there's been ongoing conversations because it's not like there's uh whatever a certification or a
right.
license you need to be doing autobiographical theater. I think in the world of theater, it's so free. You can
Mm-hmm.
do whatever you want, and I don't know what the ethics are. I guess there are no ethics about it, but there I know that there's been different panels and conversations about mental health and solo performances when people are grappling and working with their own personal material.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're trying to do in the world of drama therapy is to do it ethically and then
Mm-hmm.
effectively, right? Therapeutically effectively. And I think when Kimmy and I are talking about the process and product, it's really both, and
Yeah.
both feed on each other, right? It's not that when we're so focused, hyper focused on the product that we're just going like, whatever, we don't care about the rever as long as we put on a good show.
Right.
The theory is that if we take care of the audience and make sure that everything is coming off clearly and they're able to follow, and that the autobiographical material is clear to really illuminate why this is so emotional, impactful, important, then they are riding on this kind of journey with you. And then, therefore, that really keeps the, what we call in therapy, the container, right? Where one heals firm and not shaky or wobbly. So you are
Yeah.
taking care of the performer as we talk about making sure that the product is a, you know, uh, finely tuned. I don't want to say the word good, but
Like,
what's
what
another
is
word?
the word?
Um,
But the container is everything. You know, the frame. So
mm,
I've been reading this. I've read it twice now. This is the second time I've been reading through it. I don't, I'm forgetting the author,
need
which
to
is
comment on my big water jug in
awesome.
case people are wondering.
Like, what is that? I've been rereading again Art in the Age of Artifice, and it's a book
Ah,
about essentially like what is art in the world that we live in, but also throughout time. And just yesterday was rereading the section around the frame. And so, like the frame, like if you think about a photograph, um, you know, how a photographer, what they choose to put within that frame of the shot is everything because it's them, everything in art is storytelling, no matter the medium. And so in a photo, how they choose to frame it and where the focus is and how the light hits is the story of that. And I think that translates to theater and self-revs so directly in that, like,
mhm,
without the frame being held in such a very specific way,
right.
we lose the artistry, we lose of what a self-rev really is.
Hmm.
Like, it's beautiful and it's also uh, full of so much energy. It's got to have a frame, and
Hmm.
it can't like this tiny little uh, like minuscule shot. It's got to be enough information that we've brought the audience along with us to actually invest in whatever's going on
Hmm.
by the time
Hmm.
we reach that culminating scene where there's something happening and shifting and transforming.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I think the frame, we can also call it limits or boundaries. What's so interesting is it's pretty high stakes,
Yeah.
meaning that there is a firm deadline. The performance date does not change
Mm-hmm.
financially,
Mm-hmm.
scheduling wise, to pass the class and graduate. To There's a whole team, right? A technical team, and so stakes are high, and we scaffold that with different deadlines and whatnot. And it's interesting. I'm kind of flashing back to a student, not this semester, but the one before. So a year ago, she had dealt with part of her piece on an old trauma that she said she wrote in her final reflection paper, had talked about in therapy for probably about 20 years with various therapists and talk therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, to the core of it, not something that never kind of budged from that. So it's like repetition without transformation. And she was
Mm-hmm.
very skeptical about what it would really do to
Mm-hmm.
make a performance out
Mm-hmm.
of it. And she said something really shifted. And why I want to mention that is that the stakes are high and there is a push, right? There's a pressure to kind of push out this unexplored territory
Yeah.
around the healing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and people do not enjoy it. It is not an enjoyable process. I
It's not
mean,
smooth
you,
at all.
you got a taste of it too, but resistance is putting it lightly. I mean, all the force that's maintaining equilibrium to keep things the way they are because it's so painful to deal with otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
There is no deadline. There's no final performance. There's no act in therapy. And I do this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a therapist. You and I are psychotherapists, and we're not poo-pooing on the fact that, you know, therapy is not healing, but there's just certain walls we hit, I think,
Yes.
in one-on-one individual therapy, especially when it comes to like collective traumas, where the healing, it's like ironic, right? Like this massive thing happens to us, and then you go into a room with one person for 50 minutes once a week. Like,
Right?
Yes, and it can be very powerful and effective. But yeah, so I think I always tell the students, the motto or the mantra we're going to adopt is whatever is in the way is the way. So the thing that you
Yes.
keep complaining about or avoiding, or like when you have the thought of like, oh, if only this was not in the way, then I would be so creative and free. No, 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 no. That is
That
what
is.
is making the creative juices flow, because creative means it hasn't been there before. So you
No.
need to push up against whatever that is, that barrier.
Yes. Like all the research in creativity talks about there has to be an element of novelty. In DVT, we talk about it as like the non-repeating element, like
Mm-hmm.
the emergent that comes in and then you're like, ooh, what's that? Or oh god, whatever the feeling around the novel idea or feeling or whatever it is comes in, that has to be part of that process, or else
Right.
there's no creative juices. It falls flat. There we lose the story. We lose the storytelling.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I have another example. In
Okay.
this last semester, too, we had a student who, um, her practicum, so this is where the students are sort of interns at their clinical sites,
Mhm.
was in a memory care with the elderly. And so that's been her year-long practicum site. And she's been living at home with her grandmother with dementia for like over a decade. And in the process, she's like trying to do her, write her script and rehearse and come up with, her self-rev. And for a few weeks, it was like, it's like I'm trying to focus. And then my grandma's asking me, like, what's for breakfast? And what do you do? Like the constant uh, distraction. And we were like,
Mhm.
why don't we put her in there?
Yep.
And she became a full blown character in her piece. And then it was really neat because great, we embraced it. She's in there more of like for humor and like lightheartedness.
Mhm.
But then in the pivotal kind of healing moment, we often kind of ask for like who is a therapeutic guide or a higher being, or your wise enlightened character or self. And she really was like, I really do not have any elders who can play that role. It's just non-existent in my life. And we could have
Yeah.
gone like, oh, okay, well then we'll try to do something else. And we're like, wait a minute, why don't we
Oh,
do drama therapy on this grandma character? Right.
yeah.
So she takes drama therapy pills and is like wise for like 2 minutes.
Oh,
And gives her all the messages that she needs to hear for her healing moment.
yeah.
Right. So I mean, talk about embracing what's in the way.
Yes. And it's so visceral too, along like dementia. There's often those like little windows of like clarity for like at least earlier on in the process.
Yeah. This
And
was way later.
yeah, truth. 10
Yeah, yeah,
years is a
yeah.
long time. But like it's like, and also for the actor, they get that like also they're the thing we haven't talked about yet is the like the trajectory of like how do we create a self-rev,
That's right.
but like it's all self-generated between the director and the
Mm-hmm.
actor, and so the actor's writing this, and
Mm-hmm.
so it still comes from the actor themselves,
Correct. It's
but
just
it's
through this character, the
yeah,
projected, object,
yeah,
we call it, but it's her words. It's her own innate um, ability to heal because
hmm,
she wrote it. Her grandma would never in real life be able to say these words, but oh, so powerful, right? On stage, hearing it come from her.
yeah, and funny with
And hilarious. I mean, the actor
hilarious,
who played the grandma also just
yeah,
nailed it so
yeah,
well. So,
yeah.
sort of a clear
That's
example. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's use this as a jumping off point to talk a little bit about the process too. So like
Let's do it.
at the beginning of a self-rev, the actor might have ideas of what they think the rev is about. So in a school setting, in at CIIS, they have to write a proposal of here's why I'm choosing this modality for my capstone project. Um, and from that, that's kind of the jumping off point
Mm-hmm.
for the director and the actor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Beginning phase I talked about a little bit earlier is like a time of play where they're
Mm-hmm.
exploring the themes, the whatever emerges at the beginning.
Yeah, I kind of call it the dreaming stage, right? And I
Yeah.
say, your budget is $1 million, just go all out. Do not put limitations, right?
Yes.
Do not edit, do not
Uh,
just go off. And actually, in that stage, I also encourage the performers to find other entry points to the theme or material. Don't stay in just drama. I mean, most of our students come from different backgrounds of
mhm.
art, music, whatever it is that they're into, that's embodied, that's creative. I mean, we've seen it all at this point, poetry, spoken word, rap, all sorts of kind of movement and dance. And so, uh, yeah, we just say gather, gather, gather,
Yeah.
images, music.
Oh, the Pinterest boards.
Yes, yeah, we should call it that, the Pinterest board phase of
Yeah.
self-revs.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so at this stage it really is like no edit because you don't want to edit your creative process before it's even launched because we don't know
Mm-hmm,
yet what's going to end up. The way it's similar to developmental transformations. I'm always looking for what's repeating
mm-hmm,
or where's the energy, like where does it abruptly stop? Like maybe we
mm-hmm,
quickly pivot and I'm curious, why did we quickly pivot? What is it about that made us
mm-hmm,
pivot? And it's to me it's the same in a self-rev
mm-hmm,
introductory phase, which is like,
mm-hmm,
oh, this keeps coming up and this keeps
mm-hmm,
coming up and I know you said you want it to be about this, but I'm noticing it's kind of about that, but what it's really showing is like it's there's themes around this that's kind of emerging. Oh, you've got feelings about me even saying that, like that whole
yeah, so I
process.
always have I call it the dead babies folder. And this is very common in a lot of creative processes, right?
Yeah,
Where you're
lots of
so
mediums.
attached from
Yeah.
the inside of something that feels really precious and like, oh, this has got to be there. And that is a part of the process. So I say, great, but we're just going to stick them right in the dead babies folder. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't, we're not letting it go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of amazing how many times we revive some dead babies
Oh,
and
for
it makes it
sure.
back in, but it needed to be in a kind of a holding place
Mm-hmm.
so that we're not getting too lost.
Yeah.
But it is an intricate process. And I
Very.
know from the inside
Mm-hmm.
too of like, no, I might like this has to be in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I was like that with my own rev years
Oh
ago.
yeah, no.
I
And then
totally
with my
thought,
co-rev, I mean, maybe we should talk about our own experiences a little bit
yeah.
because we both have been on the inside of it.
Uh-huh. And
It
honestly,
is something,
I don't
yeah.
really remember a whole lot about my own.
Which is diagnostic, right? Like that's
Yes. Let's psychoanalyze that, everybody. That's true. But
yeah.
it's intense. And like I really held on to at that beginning, especially. I want it to be about this. I want it to be about that. And I had to learn to like loosen my grip on it and like
Mm-hmm.
look at what I was actually holding. I think even throughout the whole rev process, it took me, I mean, I think, well, for I think things have transformed obviously since then. It's been a long time, but it took years for me to like digest what was in my rev
Mm-hmm.
after it was done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is good, but like I think that's also speaks to the medium of what it is. Like
Mm-hmm.
it cooks. It
Mm-hmm.
continues to cook.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What was your experience being inside it?
Oh my gosh. Traumatic in the best sense.
Yeah. Like
I mean, there's so
yeah.
many exposure factors to it, right? And so
Right.
I think even in just the rehearsal process alone, there's desensitization that happens if I'm talking like more trauma-centered language.
Hmm.
Um, it was intense, it was life-changing, and I probably sound cliche, but it's almost like I have like in my mind like a pre self-rev Aileen and a post self-rev Aileen.
I certainly do
Um,
too.
yeah. And then in terms of like the process, I had been working with a DBT practitioner in my own DBT therapy. And then I had sort of, no, I did. I had a non-clinical director. So she was a pure theater director, was a drama therapist, but just didn't practice clinically.
Hmm.
And so I kind of had to fuse those two authority figures together to make it what it was. I
Okay.
think missing either of those would have not made it possible for me to create what I did. Um, yeah. And it's
Mm,
so funny because now when I look back and the students, I show them my piece as an act of solidarity.
mm.
Um, and it's so interesting to watch now and then again because we're sharing it in class because I feel so far removed from what those issues were at the time.
Mm.
Um, and I have some criticisms about, I mean, constructive ones. And
Right.
I don't know if that speaks to just me being more seasoned or my ego strength. But as an art, both as an artist and from a clinical lens, I'm like, oh gosh, like we really could have done something there, and
Well, and also you've been exposed to so many more rehearsal processes of revs that like now you have different like your T space around it has expanded.
right,
Like when you
right,
were doing it, it was like, okay, well, this is my material and this is how I'm going to express it. This is how I'm going to wrestle with this. And now it's done.
yeah,
And you also had your director being like, we want to express it like this, or we could express it like that. And now that you've been on both sides of it and seen other
mm-hmm,
people tell their stories through this medium, there's just
mm-hmm,
more things to pull from.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And then 10 years later, I did another, and I
oh
said,
yeah, yeah.
never, never. I said,
So did
never
I.
will I ever do one ever again. Because I mean, I tell my students, any students who have like chronic illnesses, from what I've noticed from like my colleagues, is that people get really stressed. I mean, you really pierce through
Mm-hmm.
whatever threshold you thought was like your limits.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and people who with chronic illnesses get really sick, people without chronic illnesses, I think get like really sick. There's the
Yes.
recovery period because it's so intense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where was I going with that? Oh, I said that I would never, ever, ever do it again. And about 10 years later, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I really need to. And so
Yeah.
I partnered up with the co-rever. So we coined the term co-revelatory performance.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah Harkness, who I'll give a little shout out to.
Woo-woo.
Another fellow drama therapist and self-rev director has taught the course. We created a piece over Zoom because it was during the pandemic. We were both mothers quarantined in COVID, if we can all remember back in those days. And
Yeah.
we were in a year-long process over Zoom, we created over Zoom. And so then there's a point of like, well, is that really theater then and not film? Because it was filmed.
Right.
Um, and the interesting thing about that was we were like, we've both done our pieces, our individual pieces, and we're both directors. So we could
Mm-hmm.
just direct each other, right? And then about a third way in, so this goes to the point of like how hard it is on the inside and how much
Yeah.
support you need. Uh, we had to outsource a director for us,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which was a huge learning point on so many levels on this
Yeah.
role of the director. They're not
What?
just someone who tells you what to do and like
No.
witnesses. They really, yeah, Rebecca Siegel, another shout out.
Woo-woo.
She was our container, so to speak.
Yeah. What was the biggest challenge in like when you arrived at that point? Like actually what was the moment where you realized, "Oh my gosh, we need somebody else to join us in this?"
We probably had some deadlines and a whole calendar. We say whatever you can structure and have um, pillars of stability
Mm.
is very containing because remember, folks, we're creating something out of thin air. I mean,
Yes.
this is what art is, but there's just nothing. And so that feeling of kind of falling in midair is how
Mm.
I like to describe it, is
Yes.
very unsettling. And, like most other art forms, like let's say like I'm a pianist and I'm preparing to, play something, there's things we can do, right? Like
Yeah.
practice our scales, show up at
Mhm.
the piano and like tinker around. But it's we came to a point where we just were not meeting any of the deadlines. We couldn't do the homework. Nothing was, we were generating, but it was just like all over the place.
Mhm.
And what was tricky was there was also interpersonal dynamics that we didn't account
Yeah.
for, you
First
know,
co-rev.
first co-refs that were totally like experimenting with a new form, a new constellation.
Mhm.
So there were elements of surprise in the process that we did not foresee. And yeah, both of us came to like a head and we were like, either we get a director, or I don't think this is going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we could also just like, we would spend rehearsals just, I mean, we're very close and playful. So we would just vent and play and generate and then
Yep.
call it a day because no one was like, we're
Right.
going to be workshopping now.
Yeah.
We got to be in script form.
Yes. So that kind of leads us to like that after that stage of exploration, we start to clarify. We start to like really hone in that second stage of the rehearsal process. So what's the kind of the goal of that process at that time?
You can't have it all and you can't do it all.
Aha.
Even though amazingly, it will all be there at
Mhm.
the end in some shape or form or element, even if it is just meaningful to you, it's going to be there. But yeah, you have to kill some babies
Yep.
and make some decisions.
Yeah.
um and yeah, start to shape, right?
Yeah.
Really shape.
It's
Like,
the
what are the
shaping.
dramatic devices? What's the style? I mean, and then when you think about drama therapy interventions, there's just like a million of them that,
Mhm.
and so many different ways that this can go. Um,
Yep.
yeah, that part is really, uh, yeah, you're like in the muck of it. It's like, what
Yeah.
is this? Oh, I think we know what it is, but then do we know what, like, what it
Yeah.
does this kind of, I mean, similar to kind of like a research paper, right? They say it like you zoom in on something and then you
And it
veer
goes,
just a little bit. And then, yes, right, it opens up a whole other thing. And then you have to rein yourself back and then get focused again. And then it's that.
yes. Yeah. I feel like especially, I mean, the whole process, but especially in this stage, it's why every rev is just so unique to who's performing because it's so much about the two people, the director and the performer, where they kind of gravitate towards in their like drama therapy style, but also their
Mm-hmm.
personalities.
Mm-hmm.
They're like I was lucky enough to work with someone who has a great sense of humor and like
Hilarious. Your performer
hilarious.
was hilarious.
I adore her. And like also I also tend to really like humor a little bit.
Humor, yeah.
So when we would get to lean into that, I was like, we are gonna go. So let's use every bit of training we know around like how to build to like a thing to like make that pop, but also like the shaping of it is like you get to use your theatricality, your personality, your relationship together. Like everything starts to like, I feel like it starts to percolate, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
yet exactly how it will be in the final performance. Because if we were to do that, we'd probably have like a 5 hour long self rev.
Right, right, right,
And it's only
right.
45 minutes long. So we've got to find ways to creatively tell that story.
And be economical. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I think people misconstrue that as, you're taking away more of my expression. But again, if we're
Mm,
coming back to the audience, and an audience can only hold so much focus,
yes.
and you can only hold their attention for so long. I mean, even more so these days. We were
Oh,
just talking about those
yeah.
VHS versions of the self rev where they were over an hour long.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that back in those days, we could hold our attention
Yeah.
um, for that. Like, I mean, Shakespeare or like long, long soliloquy kind of forms of theater, we could engage.
Yeah.
But it's harder and harder.
2026. Well,
Attention span. It's like,
well, you
give
know,
me
like
a 1 minute rev.
transform. Ooh. Well, you know, like how in LA they're now writing like scripts that it's this breaks my heart actually. They're like dumbing down their scripts so that people can be on their phone and kind of pay attention to what's on the bigger screen.
They're called a vertical storytelling or
Yeah.
vertical traumas or something like that. Yeah, like you
Awful. Like
it's the times we're in.
it makes me want to throw up in my mouth because I'm just like, wait, but there are those of us that are like really deeply craving, like, I want transformation
Long
in the
form.
art I
Yeah.
consume.
Yeah.
But you know, nope, we're gonna just mm.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Woo!
long form.
That's a
Uh-huh.
whole different Oprah. We won't go
Yeah. Yeah.
down
Yeah.
that path.
Yeah.
But okay, so we're in that second stage where we start like really clarifying and honing and shaping. And then what comes next?
Well, before that, what comes next is the other thing is
Mhm.
there the speaking of element of surprise, sometimes people will play with or rehearse with something so much in rehearsal
Oh yeah.
that by the time we're like trying to get to a final-ish script, they're like, wait, I'm not really feeling anything about that anymore. So
Yeah.
then we can't quite call it a self-rev because you're over or desensitized.
Enough.
And that's not useful for the audience, and we always encourage you to have some part of that. So many of these pieces you can tell what the process was like, the meta process, because that gets woven in to the storytelling, which is so yummy, right, for
It's
us,
my
like as
favorite. I'm like, give it to me, all of it. That's what our rev was just meta city.
so much meta. I mean, your piece, her piece was called the bold second draft because it was literally right, like just like
Yep.
ripping through and getting rid of drafts, and then that whole process.
Yeah.
So there's also that where the clinical hat is still, on you halfway, like, right,
Yeah.
because even though maybe that's not bringing a lot of emotionality, that's not, palpable enough, there's still something tied to it, or a
Yeah.
different. So there's a constant pivoting that needs to happen.
Hmm.
And I've seen people throw out literally their entire draft like 3 weeks before and like start a new one. I mean, your person was still on the nose of what they were working on, but
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
get people who are like, well, a brand new,
Like
a
brand new,
brand new.
like starting from
Yeah, it's
like
not recommended,
woo,
but it is, yeah.
I would cry
As what, the director or the
as the
teacher
director, or probably both, as the teacher and the director. I'd be like,
and
what?
the
You threw
performer?
away and the performer, because like, what are you doing? The element of surprise seems very exciting too.
Surprise, that's what the title of my piece is.
Surprise.
Um, And then speaking of that, there's all these unaccounted for and unscripted elements,
Oh,
right?
yes, yes,
There was a
yes.
question about like how much of this is improvised and scripted, and we actually want you to write
Hmm.
a script that we're able to follow through. Again, the limits and the boundaries that allow creative expression.
Yep.
Uh, because we as the witnessers need to understand what's happening, and we're checking for that, right? That the instructor and the director, the
Hmm.
technicians need to know very clearly when the cues are, so you're being held by the technical aspects of the theater.
Yep.
It's so funny because last semester we had a dance theater uh, performer and a professor, and I remember, I think it was the first day or the orientation, he was just like, I don't write scripts. And I was like, what do dancers do? They don't have scripts.
Mm-mm.
It's like the blue girl jumps and then the light comes on, and then when the green frog does the roll thing, then it's the cute.
Ooh,
And I said, well, I guess we're going to learn how to write a script, and he
yeah.
did.
Which I think also highlights the fact that, like, depending upon the performer and their history, like, there's going to be like growth edges in very different corners of the
Yes.
process. Yeah.
Yes. Or sometimes we'll have someone without any theater background who are beautiful, excellent writers, but then to think, how much of this can we show versus tell,
Yes. And there's
which is
so
also a
much.
big challenge. Yeah.
There's so much in the showing. I think like that's the
I mean, that's why we're in the theater, right?
exactly.
And I say
Exactly.
the rule of thumb is if we can listen to this on a podcast, we got to work on that. Yeah.
Yep.
Why are we in the theater? Why do we have real bodies in the theater co-regulating with us?
Yeah.
And so to speak to the unscripted moments, the elements of surprise, right? The level of presence when the performers have rehearsed enough, are off book, and really have mastered the piece, know it inside and out in terms of the structure and the lines and the cues. The
Mm.
beautiful magical thing that happens is the interaction with the audience, the live audience.
Yeah. Uh, which brings up the whole the concept of an audience at a rev is very different than like a
Yes,
traditional theater
that's right.
audience.
That's right.
Um,
So we should mention how we
yeah.
prime them.
Yeah. How do you prep an audience for a rev?
Yeah, so it's not completely a closed or private group. I know there's other therapeutic theaters who do that. It's not quite public either, but we do have people. I mean, I don't know, could be almost half or a third of people who don't know the performer personally. And
Mhm.
so the instructor or the MC of the night will come out and say, the final ingredient or the final ingredient to this kind of healing process is the audience, the compassionate, empathic witness, and that the role is not to just kind of sit back as like a passive witness being entertained, but to really actively engage,
Hmm.
laser beam support from their seats.
Yeah.
And because some of the material is very evocative or triggering, we say to take care of yourselves by identifying like what is coming up for you and hope that
Hmm.
some healing happens for you. And I mean, if I've directed 10 or a dozen, I've probably watched at this point like 100
Yeah.
revs. And as an audience member, I've often left healed, right?
So,
Left with something like that I
yeah.
didn't know that needed to be healed.
Yeah. Because I think
Yeah.
that's what like theater does it overall, and then self-revs really drive the point home. It's like in the specificity of that actor's storytelling and transformation on stage, you as audience member are taken on that ride with them and immediately have associations in your own lived experience and felt
Mhm.
sense of like, oh gosh, I feel like this rhymes with my own experience of that, or I never saw that from that perspective, and now I know I can approach whatever this is differently. Like there
Mhm.
is some sort of like in psychodrama, they talk a lot about like different players having like it's not tele, but like having some sort of shared experience of
Mhm.
witness and active participant. But I think that's true of revs as well, where the
Mhm.
audience is, it's not like they're sitting there going, yeah, although in some cases, yeah, the actor on stage might evoke something from the audience. I mean, in my rev, I had a piece which is like a piece of my rev was supposed to be the house lights came up and I was meant to address the house as a specific community I had been a
Mhm.
part of. And
Mhm.
I that was supposed to be a transformational moment. And I did not do it. I said, you know what? I will share this with you. I'm not ready to hear back what you want to say to me. You can pull the house lights down again, which was feedback. They were like, you did what? Now I just couldn't take it in, right? I couldn't stand there. And that would have been transformational. Now, over a decade later, this is like how revs really impact you as a performer.
Right, 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 right.
Over a decade later, I turn in my unedited DVT paper to graduate from the DVT Institute. I'm sitting in a chair similar to a chair in the same spot of a theater
On a
video player,
stage. It happened to be on a stage, yeah. It
just
not
like
it isn't always, but
it isn't
for your
always,
graduation, it
and it
was.
was. And it was very similar to the space where I did my rev, where I was standing or sitting, I can't remember,
Yeah, sitting. Yeah.
asking the audience to engage. And then I said, actually, no, but in DVT graduation, you are meant to sit there and take in what the audience has to say to you about who you are as a practitioner, uh, their experience, what all the different feedback they have for
It's
you.
so intimate and vulnerable.
So much. And it's really a practice of like, can I take this in? Can I take
Yeah.
this in? And like over a decade later, I finally got that moment from my rev that I didn't have the capacity for,
Wow.
which I was like, oh, these revs are something.
The final act
Yeah.
10 years later. 10
Yeah.
years later.
Yeah. Legit.
Wild.
Yeah.
That is
So
wild. Mm.
I don't remember why. Oh, the audience being an active participant in that, like the feedback I got from my own rev when I was like, no, thank you, no thanks, I can't, bye bye. Uh, Someone who used to run the DVT Institute, Randy, in California, came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, there were so many things I wanted to be able to tell you
Yeah.
that I didn't get to. And here's
Hmm.
what I would have
Hmm.
said." And I carried that. I was like, oh my gosh, that was actually an intervention unto itself of like,
Hmm. Oh,
oh,
right. There is the other person as a part of this
oh,
equation.
oh, God. That is why that's important. And so, like, yeah, I think how the audience doesn't realize how active of of a witness they truly are.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's transformational for the actor and for audience. That was a long monologue,
It
but
really is. No, no. And I mean, to what the other thing I want to add, I guess, if we want to get scientific, is that your mirror neurons are firing
oh
as the
yeah.
performer is going. As in any story we watch or read about, we identify with the protagonist,
Mm-hmm.
except they're doing this brave, courageous act of healing oneself on stage. And so even though you're not the one up there and you don't know the person and the specifics of their story has nothing to do with yours, except that's what makes it really universal,
Mm-hmm.
it does stir up things in you,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
The more specific it
So,
is, the more universal it is. Yeah.
so then we also remind the actors, this isn't just for you. This is larger than you. You're
Yeah.
doing it for us,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's what
Mm-hmm.
changes. I think in theater, of all the art mediums, theater is the one that really grabs that. I mean, music can in its live performance as well. Um, it's similar. It's like a cousin, but it's not exactly the same as what theater can do, which is
Mm-hmm.
pretty
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's my scientific. It's pretty cool.
Conclusion. Very cool.
Very cool. That's my research paper. Oh yeah.
It's wild, and I wish. No, maybe I take that back. Maybe I don't wish. I'm like, do I wish that this was mainstream? I mean, in a lot of ways, it is a gift, and I do hear a lot of people say that because one common reason why students do choose this is they say this looks very scary,
Oh, for sure.
like terrifying to do,
Yeah.
and I want to do it, and I don't think I would
Yeah.
if the stakes weren't this high. So let me put myself through this.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, we've talked about adapting, of course, and there. I mean, I want to make sure that we're not like claiming this as our thing only. I mean, there's so many different adaptations of therapeutic theater and
Yep.
big, small,
Mm-hmm.
various sites and settings. But I feel like it's, gosh, so needed.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, it also we didn't I didn't bring this up when I was like, "Hey, you want to talk about revs on my podcast?" But it's like in my brain right now. In a world that is living online and social media where everybody's a protagonist, revs end up becoming this grounded version of, like, I feel like online worlds are very ungrounded. You don't know who your audience is. You don't know, like,
It's kind of untethered.
it's
Uh-huh.
untethered.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
There's not really a container except for the little box that you're, I always say I'm talking to a green dot. Like, it's like
mm-hmm.
there's a dot.
Projecting onto. Mm-hmm,
Yeah, I don't know who's gonna watch it, but here you go. Here's me
mm-hmm.
babbling about cheese. I don't know. But like, revs actually become the grounded storytelling that I think a lot of people are seeking through what social media could have been had it taken a different path.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, they're like held by a community in real space, in real time, being like following a trajectory that's going through very
Mm-hmm.
specific stages. And there is a optimistic, hopeful, I want you to grow from this. How can I help you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of missing in other spaces.
I mean, this is where we did come from. I feel like in the world and times we're living in,
Mm,
self-revs are super inconvenient.
legit.
Like the
Legit.
amount of energy, effort that everyone, not just the performer, but everyone involved has to make in order to get to this theater physically and make this thing happen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
ever since COVID, it's a
Oh,
different time, right?
yeah.
Super inconvenient and expensive. And I want to stay home and scroll my very convenient way of connecting
Right.
and transforming. you know
Mm,
and I say that
yeah.
because it's so much easier because it's right here,
Right.
but that is the whole point of ritual acts. It takes so much prep work and
Yes. Yes. So like
the
in
whole process.
yeah. And I
Mhm.
think like even getting people like during Tech Week, I remember hearing like conversations of people who are like, "Oh, sorry, I'm late. I was on my couch." And I'm like, I don't remember having conversations like this about Tech Week prior to 2020, but now people are like, "Oh shit, I gotta be at the theater because I've been just like dissociating on my phone." And I'm like, "Wait,
And so much of our work is here,
yeah,
and here, and yeah.
yeah, crazy." I feel like, yeah,
Like, what a thought to gather in a space
in a
together
space.
and perform something and take that in. And
Yeah.
express and cry and laugh together
Yeah.
and then leave and go home
It'd be changed.
and be changed and yeah, and have these pieces. I mean, so many of the pieces in this recent semester are still kind of like simmering
Yes.
inside of me, simmering and swirling and
Yeah.
um
The one student, the poor, I won't name their names, but the one student, that poor student, I messaged them, I think twice. I saw them and then messaged them. I was like, I'm still sitting with your piece. Like, they were like, thank you so much. I'm like, no, you don't understand.
understand.
I am sitting with your piece. It is moving something in me. I am changed. Thank you. Like, it's empowering.
So
Um,
many people say thank you, the audience,
yeah.
when they come up to the performers, because it is a gift, and you can see the labor, the blood,
Yes.
sweat, and tears that have been put in to get to that final moment. It is
Yeah.
an act of service, I think.
Totally. Totally.
We should
Well,
charge people.
amen. Okay, so we going back to that structure. So we really are creating something out of nothing. We're gathering, we're clarifying, we're honing, we're shaping, and then there's scripts, actual scripts,
Yeah.
and then we perform.
Hmm.
Um, what is the? I guess my question is, why would anyone want to do this? You know,
I mean, yeah.
this hella
Um,
inconvenient, emotional, traumatic,
Expensive,
expensive.
traumatic, painful.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and the funny thing is, well, it's not funny when you're in it, but it's like when you embark on the journey, you write your proposal and you start, magically shit starts to get stirred up in people's lives and the very thing starts to happen and
Hmm.
everyone's like, what is going on? And that's sort of like the laws of what, I don't even know what the theory is, the
I
laws
don't
of
know.
some attraction universe theory,
Oh yeah,
like it
yeah,
just, Murphy's law, I don't know, one of those things.
yeah.
um yeah, and they're like, wait, why is this happening now? I'm trying to work on it. I'm like, that's exactly why it's happening, because you said you wanted to work on it.
Yep,
um
yep.
yeah, it's so why, I mean, there's some selling points once you're on the other side, right? People say that was so worth it, that was so special, that was so meaningful. Your person was like, I'm a believer now, and I was like, were you skeptical the whole time?
I
And she
know.
was
I was
like,
like, wait, what?
yeah. And that's why it's also important, I think, to have a director who's gone through the process, because that's where you're kind of like an older sibling,
Hmm.
who's gone through it and goes like, listen, like I get it,
Yeah.
connecting with you on how hard it is, and like there is this other side, and we're starting to implement TAs who are sort of like the another older sibling kind of role, who have just gone through the process, because yeah, to birth something, I often use the metaphor of it being a birthing process.
Hmm.
You can't do it alone in a
No,
closet.
nope. It
I mean,
has to
you could
be.
try, but I don't know
You
if it'll
try,
be
but
the
you
same
would
thing.
it would probably be meandering and like not really have a lot of focus because it really needs being held by multiple people with different perspectives to say,
Mm-hmm.
what about this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tell you when to push, tell you when to breathe, tell you when
Yeah.
to, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but we do need more studies and research on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like hopefully, if we're talking about the future, um,
Mm-hmm.
my dreams are to conduct some studies on the therapeutic effectiveness, or actually even like just what it does. Maybe the
Yeah.
study will be like, stop doing this. This is very unethical. We got harmful, very harmful.
Harmful.
Um,
Oh
you
God.
know,
I
or maybe
doubt
it'll
it.
say very cool and harmful.
Conclusion, very cool. Don't ever do it.
Do it. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So
in an
like,
academic sense, I would love to do studies.
yeah. Um, if someone wanted to watch a rev,
Yeah.
how do they go about doing that?
It depends on who the someone is. Um, Most of our students consent to it being shared, not like on a public platform
Mm-hmm.
like YouTube or anything, but for educational purposes. So it's not too hard to get your hands on one.
Yeah.
But that's also an interesting experience to watch a rev by yourself. Um,
I will say, so like when you're in school and they're like, go watch revs so you can understand what they are, and then you're going to make a mini rev at the end of your first semester. So my first experience before I ever saw one performed in real life was
Huh?
watching recordings of other
Oh,
people's
same.
revs. And I
Yes.
thought, this is stupid.
Why?
I just thought it was kind of pretentious. Like this is totally showing you like the culture that I grew up in, and then I show up in San
And where you
Francisco.
were. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And where I was in my journey of life and all the things. I was like, this is stupid. This is pretentious theater crap. Uh, this is self-indulgent. Oh, talking about
Oh, we haven't talked about,
self-indulgence.
we touched on it.
We
We just
did.
didn't label it that.
That's
But maybe
true.
we should highlight for the audience, the word, I kind of want to change the terminology, but I can't think of a better word.
Hmm.
There's a concept and a term called self-indulgence in self-revs. And that's essentially when something feels really good to you to say and express as the performer, but that
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily invite the audience in or give
Hmm.
them new information or serves as like a therapeutic driving force.
Hmm.
That always has to be negotiated with a very trusting director and instructor, because
Yeah.
I will say from the inside, those points feel very important.
I feel like they're everything. They're the biggest part of shaping the whole piece
Uh-huh.
because if we miss them, we've lost the audience,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm.
I've witnessed those revs where I'm like, ooh, why are we still here? Why are we back on this again? Nothing's
Why was that 5 minutes long when it could have been like a
a statement.
moment? Yeah. But I also want to say there's self-indulgence and there's and that self-indulgence via expression, and then there's self-indulgence via avoidance. So
Mm.
unwilling to show and share
Hmm.
the things
Hmm.
that kind of need to be there for both yourself and the audience.
Yeah, because we need
Um,
context,
right,
right?
right, right.
Um, yeah,
I mean, we could have talked about, yeah, we could do a whole other segment on trauma and self-revs, but
yeah,
I'm trying to keep it more broad here.
more broad.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't
So,
know. Is there anything else in terms of future for you?
I mean,
You want to do another one?
I do. Yeah, so future of self-revs in my life, which is hilarious because when I finished my self-rev, I also said, absolutely not. Never again. That sucked. And I never even want to watch it. I did it. Great. Bye.
Check.
But
Yeah,
I also didn't like, so my preferred approach in drama therapy is developmental transformations. And I didn't do DVT as part of my rehearsal process.
that's right.
It was very psychodramatic and five phase style, which are great approaches. But for my creative process, DVT just kind of aligns more with who I am as a human and practitioner. And so I think one of the coolest things that came out of me getting to direct this year was, or last year now, was getting to use DVT in the rehearsal process and and I didn't realize how much I actually just think in a DVT mindset at all times. And so even through the directing role, how I held it felt like a play space the whole time. And
Whole time. Yeah.
I feel like now I just want to do that. I want to direct more. I want to, and for the first time said, okay, Aileen, what if I did do a self rev again? And you were like, do it.
Do it.
Yeah. I think I'm also super interested in the research because there's
Not
not.
specifically on self. I think there was a kind of a survey study that they did on some graduates,
Mm,
and we're measuring certain things.
mm,
I still have a really hard time trying to locate that article. It was when Antonio was still on faculty, and Gary and Renee, I think, wrote it together. Um, but I do want to say when I did it again for the co-rev, we didn't have to do it. It was not required or mandated for a class or anything. It was
yeah.
really because we do remember jointly, I think I could speak for Sarah, the therapeutic values of it. And, we were like, we need to do something.
Mhm.
Uh, Actually, we were inspired by Katrine Debon, a shout out,
Oh,
and my director,
amazing.
Christina Lewis, who
Hmm.
did a sort of a co-rev-ish performance during COVID that was recorded, and they presented it at an ADT conference.
Hmm.
It was a little bit more looser or abstract. They didn't want to put it in a confines of a revelatory piece. And we thought, oh my God, that looks so fun, because we're doing it together and it's creative.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah and I must say that was one of the lifelines that kept us sane, because not only were we quarantined with our kiddos, we were doing Zoom therapy day
Yeah.
in, day out.
Yeah.
Um, and we were just going absolutely bonkers. And so uh, the reason why I think it's a good idea that you do it, or why I'd highly recommend it, is a lot of parts of it was so much fun. And to
Yeah.
have this creative project,
Yeah.
um, to be working on, to show up to, and to be dreaming about it and making art, that really was so helpful for us.
You and I have talked about this in the past about how both of us are the kind of humans that are like, actually, when it was about doing another rev, but just
Mm-hmm.
the idea in general, like how through this whole process, I've realized as a creative human, I have to be making something
Yeah,
in order to
same.
feel like a
Alive.
alive in the world. And like I think I've gone through periods of my life where I wasn't creating, I was consuming more, and
Mm-hmm.
and just hadn't realized I had not made the connection that the consumption of everything was making me so much more like just depressed as a human, but also just not alive. The vibrancy of who I am is like threaded in my cells in the act of creation. I think it's why I'm obsessed with creativity and
Mm-hmm.
imagination, and why this process specifically, because you have something out of nothing. And to me,
Yeah,
there's nothing more uh
human and alive, right?
yes.
The
Like
expression piece, because the consuming
yes.
is, I mean, I do it too,
Hmm.
but you just get so filled up, filled up, filled up, and then it has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Other than that was cool.
Right. That was cool. And I want to share, like, I will like piggyback on stuff, but it's not my own. And it has to, I think that's also
From
why
your source,
from my
right?
source. Yeah. So, like, sit me down in front of a drum set. Heck yeah. Get me singing. Heck yeah. Get me doing this. Heck yeah.
Chalk on sidewalk.
Chalk on the sidewalk. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, if that's not like, yeah. So when you say like with the future, I'm like, oh, it's that. But we've talked. Yeah. I just had to mention that as part of the
I
podcast.
hope so. I can't wait. I can't wait to see your next self-rev or
Yeah.
co-rev.
Yeah. You and me both. I don't know. Ugh.
I still have a few more years before I want to do another one.
That's fair. That's fair. Oh man. Well,
Oh,
we should probably bring our conversation to a
yeah,
close. Aileen, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to like learn more about you or get in
sure.
contact with you, where can they find you?
I guess my personal website or the CIIS website.
Okay.
Should I say it out loud or should I
You
give it to
can.
you?
I'll put it in the description of the podcast as well.
Great. My actually Instagram handle, Kimmy's been inspiring me to be more active on there, as Aileen underscore B underscore CHO. And then my website's the same, www.aileenbcho.com. But you'll mostly be finding me in CIS related things. But yeah, this was so much fun.
Yay, thank you for
Thank you
being
for
here.
having me.
All
Woo!
right. Thanks,
Finally, we
everybody.
made it happen.
I know we've been talking about this for maybe a year. Awesome. Bye.
Bye.